Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Readers and Libraries Season 4. In fact, good afternoon, good evening, whichever part of the world you would be when you would be listening to the conversation between me and the guest of the day. Welcome back to this session. And after three successful seasons, we are here with the fourth season and having the next guest of the season. So let me have the honor of introducing the guest of the day before handing over the conversation to him. So today we have Rakesh Kaul, Managing Director and CEO of Live Pure Private Limited, and I like the tagline of the organization, making every Indian healthy by offering pure water and air. And you have Sachin Tendulkar standing with a glass of water, which is very interesting. Prior to this, Rakesh was the Managing Director and CEO of a big brand, Hindware, which most of us have been using in our houses. He's been growing it over the years and now he's joined this organization. Rakesh comes with 27 years of rock solid experience across multiple areas of businesses. So if I look at his LinkedIn page and start talking about the areas that he operates, is go for 2 minutes. I'm going to avoid that because as a CEO, anything from strategy to execution to business planning to expansion to innovation to growth to a bit to butterfly top line, you name it, the man would have done it. Beyond all this, what I loved is when I invited him for this event, he promptly accepted the invitation and said, let's do this, which also tells me that he's an avid book lover like me and many of you have been on the show. So thank you so much, Rakesh, for accepting the invitation and coming on the show. Good morning to you.
Yeah, good morning, and thanks a lot, Raji, for that. Wishing me all the best, and it's always a pleasure. I keep on reading a lot about your posts as such, and it's a very interesting piece. I mean, I've not come across such a kind of a session where we actually discuss about what we read, because we most of the times we do talk about that what we read and what we need to implement out of what we read, but there's no process about it. So I think you're trying to create a process which is really very good and praiseworthy as such. I think
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Rakesh. In fact, the good news is we did 74 guests across the last three seasons, and this season I'm looking at 26 guests. That should take us to the magic number of 100. And once we reach that, the idea is to 100 conversation with 100 leaders on 100 books would become a physical book and come out. That's my final dream. And I assume that should be a great document for people and young leaders to consume.
sounds great.
Yeah. All right, superb. So let's straight away jump into the book of the day. And I'm going to leave him to talk about the book. But before the conversation, my first question, as always, I'm intrigued to ask my guest is how did books happen to you and how did it play a role in your growth, Rakesh?
With the 27 years of experience so far, I was strong very academically, if you would like to put it that way. And right from my inception, from my childhood and schooling, I've been strong academically. So to say that I was, what do you call in, parlance, bookworm, and who have put a strong focus on academics. But at the same time, while I was studying and used to be almost a topper most of the times when I studied in school, I started drifting in the college when I just moved out of those A percentages and started scoring B percentages. That's where my life took a turn because I moved from my state of Jammu and Kashmir, Srinagar, and moved to Delhi,
Mhm.
and that's
Mhm.
given me an exposure of much bigger world and a much bigger canvas than about limited canvas in J&K, where I
Mhm.
actually wanted to become a doctor as such. So so at the start, so it opened my canvas as such, and over a period of time, when I joined Delhi University and did my graduation there, and subsequently my management also, and I did my master's in foreign trade from Symbiosis also.
Mhm.
I think the world opened to me. And what
Mhm.
I guessed over a period of a time is that, probably two experiences which have shaped my life and career.
Mhm.
One
Mhm.
is traveling and meeting people, and other is reading. So I became a
Okay.
voracious reader. I mean, in fact, I feel actually comfortable when I don't read actually. So you will see. So I think over a period of a time, that's what how books happened to me. And traveling became a part of that actually. If you
Mm.
see, the
Yeah.
experiences gained a tremendous, learning out of traveling and then reading. As that's what reading happened to me somewhere around, I think, 21, 22 years back,
Okay.
and probably for the decade of 2010 to 2020 was probably when I started gulping books like nobody's business. I used to I used to finish a book in maybe a Delhi to Kochi flight. I used to be so, and I used to
Ah,
complete that as
lovely.
so that
Super. So you're one of those people who would you may miss a watch or a kerchief in your travel kit, but never a book.
yeah. True, very true, very true. So I think so, people tend to think, what will they do on a plane on a long flight if you're traveling from one country to another? So I'm pretty sorted out. So because I have a couple of things in my handbag, and I enjoy that. And probably that's the best time. People hate traveling, but I love traveling. Despite traveling so
I
much, I still love traveling.
There's so much of time to read. Recently I'd been to Dubai and just come back. So on my flight to Dubai, I picked up a book of the Shiv Kumar of The Art of Management, classic book that he's written, the second one. I picked up the book and also posted to see how Shiv is going to hold me as a reader. Believe me, on my trip to Dubai and back, I'm done with the book. I'm going to write about the book tomorrow in the afternoon. It was quick. And sometimes certain books are so powerful, it just grips you, like you rightly said. You can finish it between a Delhi Kochi or a Bangalore to Dubai.
And in your case, I think you could have finished the book while waiting at the immigration counter because I
Yeah,
guess it would be a
absolutely.
long time.
2 घंटे तो वही लग गया.
Great.
Very true. Super, super. Great. So this particular book that you're going to talk about, I'm going to ask you to talk a little about why the CEO Excellence is a book that you picked up as a book
Yeah.
of the conversation.
To be very frank with you, I picked up this book in 2022, actually, so middle
Hmm.
of 22. And I mean, by that time, I would have read hundreds of books on leadership, hundreds of books on CEO, excellence, and stuff like that. But this was a paradigm shift. I think the cognitiveness of the book, the real time scenarios and the real time
Hmm.
examples of leaders across the world was crafted so beautifully in real business situations and real lifetime situations that I probably felt that this is the book, probably majority of the leaders or who aspire to become leaders or reach the top rung should read for sure. I mean, it's a leader at a COMD -1 level. Also, it's a perfect book for them as well. And to be very frank with you, so since I've been a CEO and MD for now last almost from 13, 12, 13 years, I
Hmm.
found the book to be exemplary in the sense that it really connected so many dots
Yeah.
building how do you build a leadership fund, what exactly leader means. I mean, very
Hmm.
very 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 candid, very very simple, but written very beautifully. So I think that stands out amongst all the 1500 odd books which are part of my library today. It stands out
I
among.
agree.
Yeah.
I agree. I mean, Carolyn, Scott, and Vikram have done a great job in this particular book. Tremendous research, and I think people like you should probably recommend running these kind of books for one level below you also. And I'm saying this on a recent experience. I met a gentleman who was a global CHRO of an organization in Dubai, and one of his businesses, he runs a hospital company, and one of the CEOs apparently was sent to the US to attend a workshop on Good to Great and Built to Last by Jim Collins. And he came back completely blown away. And the moment he landed back, the first mail he wrote to the management and HR saying, it just opened up me like anything. Though this book has been written decades ago, you see the relevance. We should first get this book ran for all the people at an N-1 level across all businesses.
Absolutely, absolutely, I
Some
completely
books are
agree.
so powerful. Yeah.
Very true, very true.
Super. Super. All right. On that note, I'm going to start with the first question from the book. So I've got three, four, which caught my attention very much, and I am also inspired by this. The author talks about something called reframing the game. Now, we all know the game means the game of business. How do you see this, and why is it important for the C-suite or C-level leaders in organizations? Why should they reframe?
I think, vision is a very powerful statement, and many of the times, vision, mission, and business objectives, many a times we interchange them as such.
Hmm.
And when you say actually reframing the vision, I think one of the areas which actually, one of the sentences or one of the lines which actually prompted me to do a complete somersault was, the CEO's vision should be so clear that a leader does not have to do anything but get out of the way of the teammates. That's something, it's like a reframing the vision, basically
Yeah.
reframing the vision in such a way that the clarity and the path to success, the path to achieve the vision of the organization becomes so clear that CEO is nothing but an impediment. So he basically has to clear the way, actually. So this is such a strong vision you have to create for your organization, reframing the approach of that vision, actually.
Yeah.
So I think, and also when you say reframing the vision, I see it's very important, relevant for a CEO or a leader to actually involve and create the vision around the people people from the feedback of the people who support, who will help them
Hmm.
create. I've
Hmm.
used we found, when you involve people in creation of, such elements, they tend
Mm.
to be much more strongly oriented towards that vision that they would normally be, rather than a thrusted vision upon them as such.
Correct.
At
Correct.
the end of the day, you see most of the people actually want some control, and when you frame the vision with their feedback, they feel they're in control, and they feel they're
Correct.
in control. They've been asked for. So I think reframing the vision was basically was something which really excited me about the whole thing. That how can you make the path easier? How can you get out of the way? And all the aggregation of ideas which actually frame the vision of the organization, and let those people walk on that path, because actually these are those people who have actually framed the vision for the organization. So I think take a step back and not have a top down approach in building a vision of the organization, but it gets in as an aggregation. And when you take it as an aggregation of ideas from your entire team, what you get is power of one actually. So I think
That,
the power of one. So that's a very
that's
radically reframed vision, I would say, and it serves customers through cross-functional teams, and is very customer and consumer focused as such, and can actually span across decades, and if not decades, if not years, if not decades, actually.
right.
So I think that's how we should do it. Basically, I would say build such a
Yeah.
powerful and a conglomerated and aggregated idea of a vision that is nothing but a subset of thoughts of each and every one of in your organization, and
Mm.
make a vision out of it, and let the people drive that actually, because they own it at the end of the day.
Interesting, interesting. I have an extended question to this. This is my curiosity asking this question. So visions are normally created for a long term, and CEO drives multiple years of businesses on that particular vision, right? Till they want to do a complete orbit shift and then want to go back and relook at changing the vision. But jab tak you're working on the same vision, reframing means what? Are you looking at some changes in the interim period or the vision statement itself, or the approach towards reaching that vision should be reframed?
I think the approach towards that vision should be is what is needed to be done, because I would not say majority of the good organization create a very compelling vision. It's not that the vision is not good, but how do you create that roadmap? How do you reframe that vision in the sense that it becomes an easier path for the consumer to for the your employees to access and reach out to
Mm.
those vision, and keep on and make it time barred actually. So
Mm.
otherwise, what happens? Vision is normally is something like a Mount Everest, which everyone knows where it is, but no one wants to climb
Mm.
it. Although
Mm.
nowadays there are many people who climb Mount Everest nowadays.
Yeah,
So I think it's more about the path and easing up the path as such.
yeah, yeah.
Uh, so and
Agreed.
most of the CEOs who have game-changing visions, they always look forward, and capture
Mm.
the broad ownership through these, and make the people join them. And
Correct,
once the
correct.
vision is set in, regardless of what point in the journey, you have to make the CEOs have a job of making a vision a reality as such.
Mm, mm, mm.
You would have
I think,
heard of a
from this,
Japanese proverb. You would have heard of a Japanese proverb which says, "A vision without action is merely a dream."
I agree completely, completely.
So I think
Yeah,
that's what reframing the game or reframing the vision,
yeah,
reframing the game in the sense of vision approach is very radical
yeah.
idea.
And from Japanese, it's coming because I've worked very closely with Japanese, and believe me, Rakesh, used to have these professors coming in and sometimes reviewing our work, and I used to be with TVS Motors leading their OD and learning. You go with 10 slides of preparation to them and they say, Ajit, Indians are very good in strategy. Talk about execution. Then stop at the fourth slide. Till the professor is not convinced कि क्या कर रहे हो, अगला 10 मिनट देखेगा भी नहीं. It was a bit tough, a nightmare. And in fact, one of the classic things that really I learned from this reframing game is the case of Ajay Banga when he was leading Mastercard. Classic story of when he went around and said we need to fight with Visa and ensure we get more market share. He realized that 70% plus was still on cash economy and people were not using the card. He said, let's reframe the statement calling it kill the cash.
Absolutely,
But the
absolutely.
moment you say kill the cash, you're looking at that 70% of pie instead of fighting with Visa for the 20% जो पहले से हम लोग कर ही रहे
Yeah,
हैं.
correct.
That was
And
a great reframing for me.
I think the UPI interface in India, which actually got accelerated by demonetization, is another classic example of, moving millions and billions of Indians into the digital fraternity, the likes of which is not even seen in Europe and America nowadays.
I agree. Okay.
Yeah, so
Super, super. Thank you so much for that. I'm going to take you to the next one, and this is a little bit in my area of interest, which is organization development. So, in that particular chapter, which talks about OD practice, the authors talk about this very interesting concept of CEOs need to think helix and not matrix. और उस चैप्टर में 2 बार पढ़ा बिकॉज इतने साल से हमको पता है कि मैट्रिक्स ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस हैं उसमें अडेप्टेबिलिटी चाहिए एजिलिटी चाहिए यू नीड टू फिगर आउट हाउ यू वर्क विद टीम्स इंटर डिपार्टमेंटल एक्सेट्रा बट दे आर सेइंग थिंक हेलिक्स एंड नॉट मैट्रिक्स व्हाट इज योर टेक एंड हाउ शुड लीडर्स look at this?
I think I have a bit of a radical idea in this case. Matrix
Hmm,
organizations are fundamental core in many of the multinationals,
hmm,
but I would like to say a matrix many a times creates a bad system as well,
hmm,
bad system as well. So I would I would put it that if you have a good person, a bad system will even rot the good person as such. So I think
hmm,
matrix is passe. Matrix does not focus on capabilities management.
hmm,
Matrix does not focus on value creation at workplace. So I think typically what the book says about the Helix organization is to focus a lot on the capabilities management and the value creation part as such. So I think
hmm,
it also talks about many a times the Matrix organization also gives at times the leaders a wherewithal
hmm,
to try and experiment, come back and forth. Like there are so many CEOs I've seen, who work on centralization, then decentralize, then centralize, and
hmm,
it gives them a kind of a blanket sanction as such when it's metrics. So Helix is completely on capabilities management.
hmm,
Helix is on creating value around your employees and making them a potent force for your organization. So I think this book depicting about capabilities management takes capability management discussion to a totally different level rather than restricting it to the organizational
hmm,
structure as such. So I
hmm.
so I think that's quite radical actually.
Sure, sure. So my question to you on that is, during the end of 80s when so-called authoritative leadership started moving into more of democratic leadership, when people spoke about interlinkages and importance of interdepartmental functioning, this matrix concept started building big, and organizations started relooking their org structures from the matrix only. So now with that, 2 decades, 2.5 decades up, are you saying that matrix is a passe and people should look at a different model now? And because that can cause confusions and less clarity?
Yes, so typically in global organizations, Matrix was the best possible way to, integrate the organizations around the world because otherwise
Hmm,
you cannot have a typical line structure to run an organization which is present in 150 countries. What I'm trying to say is that
hmm,
Matrix as an organization structure may still remain in what it is,
hmm,
but the build up, the creation of the value and asset, what you call the people,
hmm,
is not necessarily through the matrix organization. You create watertight compartments in
hmm,
matrix organization where people many a times don't have the liberty to work outside those airtight compartments. And a
hmm.
helix organization is within the matrix organization. How do you create capabilities out of those people as such?
Correct,
The
correct.
focus on capabilities and value creation is missing in typical matrix organization. I'm not
Hmm,
saying in all, but
hmm.
most of them actually.
Is it because of confusion and abstractness that gets built into the matrix system?
Yeah, abstractness, and then there is a very, very clear what I call delegation, very clear delegation and line of authority as such in terms of what you
Uh,
can do and what you can't do. That really doesn't help in terms of building value around a person, and building on learning and development as such.
hmm,
I would not
hmm.
say that there are organizations which are not successful at doing that, but I think the future world will require organizations to move out of that culture and drive capability and learning consistently with employees as such.
Yeah. Which I think the Eastern world, especially the Japanese and Germans from this part of the world, have done this very well, in terms of very structured org structure and building capabilities across the levels to move capability to a different level, isn't it? And I've seen this at least in these kind of cultural organizations. But what's your take on that?
I mean, yes, of course. I mean, I never said that the metrics organization is bad. I mean, you've seen, I mean, I don't want to name the organizations. You have some of the most potent organizations in the world who have built capabilities around the metrics organization, but yet have not focused on the helix part. So I think there are a couple
Mm,
of giants in America who do still do helix, and I can give you some examples of Indian companies as well.
mm,
So which while being metrics have not have focused on on the helix part as well, where capabilities and development take a precedence over everything else. So what do you create in
mm,
metrics are more of specialists, and
Yeah.
you do much of cross-functional, which a Helix organization gives. Because at the end of the day, I think an employee, if the organization's focus is on the development of the individual rather than telling him that my focus is in organization development, a person is much more keen to work for that organization. He will probably
Lovely.
give much more when it comes, because he knows he's going to get developed, he's going to learn more, he's going to become more capable individual, and that can fast track his career as well. So I think
Lovely.
future organizations have to be very nimble in that respect, that learning will become a very,
Mm,
very important fulcrum for a
mm.
for a capable person to get retained in the organization.
I think nimble is a very lovely word you used, just making me think. So which means it's safe for me to assume that Rakesh as an MD and CEO, you're building this Helix kind of a format in Liftpure to build
Yes, I'm
capabilities,
trying.
get
So
things done. Yeah.
yes, of course, I'm trying to do a lot of, and I keep on telling my people is that, everyone talks about organization development. So I just
Mm.
talk about people development. So I mean, when you do people development, you may still lose people because they would have developed themselves and they couldn't go to any other organization. But I'm far better off than not developing them and focusing something else.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
So I'm better off people learning, growing, making the organization grow. And if tomorrow I don't have anything for them and they grow and they go somewhere else, I think it's worth it, worth it.
Very true. Very true. That classic cliche cartoon of the CEO and HR talking, right? CEO
Okay.
says you can train them and they leave. What happens? CHRO says you don't train them, they stay back and what happens?
Yeah.
Which is more dangerous, right?
And you
So,
become an organization, which people will actually like to join, actually.
yeah, very true. Very true. Because people are looking at learning as a very important element from a
Absolutely,
cultural angle to choose an organization today, isn't it?
absolutely, absolutely. And
Very true.
when,
Very
when
true. Super. Super. Thanks for that. I'm happy because I'm talking to a CEO who's very pro Udi, right? There are a lot of people who are very pro EBITDA. I'm glad that you're looking at OD and people development as a clear input for improving EBITDA of an organization. So thanks for that.
I think EBITDA is a function of so many things actually. If you tend to focus on the others, EBITDA is nothing but a derivative of whether how you're developing your products, how you're developing your people. And
Yeah.
I continue to say that if you focus on the other developments, then EBITDA is just a function of that. You could create a world-class EBITDA. You could create a great financial organization, yet you may not have the wherewithal to retain all of your best people because they may
Very
move.
true.
Yeah.
And there are many organizations that we can talk about in a different conversation that have screwed up because of not focusing on it, right?
So
Okay, I'm going to take you to the next interesting question, which I thought was very, very nice. And I like the way the authors have put this. And when they talk about team composition, they're talking about a very powerful phrase which says CEO should act fast but fair. It just caught me like a bullseye when this word fast and fair was put together in one small phrase. And I liked it the way they've coined that sentence. How do you interpret this? What's your one input to the young leaders who are becoming head of the department and eventually wanting to get onto the boards?
So I think one of these statements which I really liked about in this piece was, and say fast and fair, before coming to fast and fair, is that you got to be bold and right. So
Yeah.
if you're not bold, you're not going to do much of anything, and if you're not right, you're not going to be there. So you got to be fast, you got to be bold, but at the same time, got to be fair as such. Organizations and people love to be a part of that system where the decision taken is faster, where they feel the leaders can go into uncharted territories,
Yeah.
uncharted waters, and navigate the waters for the team. The team
Mm,
loves to be there. So you have
mm,
how to become fast when you actually go into unrelated areas, uncharted territories, and
mm.
you take the risks along with it, and also at the same time make your team navigate through those stormy waters as well.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
and so that's very critical part to understand that you got to be fast, but at the same time fair, because many times what we have seen when organizations tend to grow very fast,
Mm,
it could be a great business model at times. It could be
mm.
a great business model, or you could be in the right category at the right time when there is very less competition and you still grow fast. But there's a tendency that organizations tend to, trundle down faster, and the people part is lost on the part. So I think
Mm.
fairness is a very, very eloquent quotient where when organizations grow faster than what the industry growth
Yeah.
average is, the fairness towards each of these employees is very, very critical. And a CEO has to be a very cognizant of the fact that growth should not overtake, the ambitions of what people are. People should think that they are being treated fairly at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think that's very, very clear as such to me. That you be
Very
fast,
true.
you be fast, but be fair as well.
Very true. And I remember a conversation with the vice president of an organization running these sales. They were sitting at some 24% of EBITDA or something. And their attrition was sitting at 28%.
Mm.
And this man was, ऐसे सर पे हाथ रखे हुए थे, क्या कर रहे हैं? So we showed him a slide. I said, look, Kodo, from this book. He said, I think you guys are very fast and furious. You want to remove the word furious and replace it with the word fair. Maybe things will become better because he was so aggressive running.
Yeah.
Then he said, okay, he heard about it. तब कुछ बात नहीं किया. Then I think we finished the meeting and went off. Then the next day after he called me, said, Rajiv, this word of fast and furious, the movies I've seen all of them, and you have thought of replacing the word furious with fair kind of hit me. I was thinking over it the night. Maybe I'm being too aggressive. Let's do something about these people and about me also. How to be more fair rather than being a furious or an aggressive leader. Sometimes
Absolutely.
it makes sense, right? Very true.
Very true.
Very true. Very true. Lovely. Lovely. I'm going to take you to the last question of this conversation, keeping the interest of time. From this particular book and all your experience of being a CEO, leading organizations, Rakesh, I wanted to go back in your own journey of success for a moment, leave that CEO's hat aside. Two bullseye advice to the young leaders correctly, who are going at a very fast pace, who are looking at reaching the top very quickly and making it big, which is good. But any two powerful inputs to them that help them really pace and also pause.
I think many actually, but which really stood out to me, a couple of them actually is forget being a CEO. Most of the managers are leaders. So I would say to all my young budding leaders, I would say leadership is actually a privilege. Leadership is a privilege. And if you really want to lead, you have to be committed to serve actually. And that what
Mhm.
leads to the concept of servant leadership. I think that's
Yeah.
a real, I would say a real icebreaker, or I would say, it compels you to think differently completely. A servant leadership is where you put your customers and your last line in the organization, last person in the organization at the top of the pyramid, and the leader is at the bottom of the pyramid. So it's an inverted pyramid. So I think
Yeah.
servant.
Rakesh, I think I lost you for this Wi-Fi. Let's just continue the statement on that particular
Yeah.
point. You could repeat that for us, please. Sorry.
Oh, so I was just saying that,
Servant leadership.
so the millennials have to be very, very clear on this servant leadership actually. So I again reiterate that for you all, leadership is actually a privilege. And if it's a privilege and you want to attain that privilege, be committed to serve. Be
Hmm.
committed to serve. So I think that's one of the most powerful statements which you have to make. And as a leader, I think what needs to be done is what I call a courageous leadership. While people talk about courageous leadership in a different way, I would say my take and the book's take as well is a little bit is being terrified and being vulnerable is one of the best abilities a leader can have. When you're
Correct.
vulnerable, when you show your vulnerability towards your team, I think the team believes that you're much more human than being a CEO. So being vulnerable
Hmm.
and having people who are maybe even smarter than you in your team is a perfect example of being a great leader, because I talk about certain leaders who say they do not fear, do not have fear of fear. I mean, I
Hmm.
would call them fools.
Yeah. Yeah.
And people who let fear rule them is a coward actually. So let's,
Hmm.
one of the big takers is leaders should show vulnerability. Leaders are vulnerable, and leaders
Hmm.
should show vulnerability from time to time, because that
Hmm.
will endear them to their team much more, and they will be much more empathetic. The team will be much more empathetic towards their leaders because they will believe that the leader is human after all. So I think
Very
these
true.
things really stand out for me completely. Servant
That's
leadership and vulnerability part, I think.
That's beautiful because these two concepts kind of brings people on the same plane, right? There's no leveling ho jata.
Absolutely,
Right?
absolutely,
Very,
absolutely.
very true. Very true. Lovely, lovely. Thank you so much, Rakesh, for this conversation. It was crisp and clear. Thanks for point blank answering those questions, making it interesting for the listeners. I had a lovely time. I hope you had too.
Thank you so much. I think it was a pleasure to be on here, Rajiv, and let's be in touch.
Pleasure. You have a good day ahead.
Thank you
Bye-bye.
so much. You too. Bye bye.